for more out of that tonight. Again, this team has turned over the football. Having Lockett out there would help. Chris Carson, listed as questionable. My understanding is he's unlikely to play. He's missed the last 3 games. This would be the 4th straight game he would be missing with a foot injury. On the flip side, Carlos Hyde off the injury report. So if Carson can't go, Carlos Hyde, along with Alex Collins, would step in there and be the Seahawks running backs tonight against Arizona, Greeny.
They've had all kinds of running back issues over the last few weeks. All right, Neek, I'm coming to you. This game is so interesting in so many different ways. What is the number one thing you're looking for tonight?
I think Kyler Murray really has a measuring stick right now because of Russell Wilson is on the other side. Russell Wilson is the guy that Kyler Murray is compared to most because of their height and somewhat of their playing ability. And I think that Kyler Murray has really great opportunity coming off of that great Hail Mary. He has everyone's attention to be in prime time and to go up against, frankly, a pretty bad defense. Kyler Murray could really cement his MVP candidacy and get himself a lot of attention and a lot of new fans tonight in prime time against a bad defense, while we'll be looking at Russell Wilson on the other side doing a more advanced, a more developed version of what Kyler Murray is doing. He might come out of tonight as one of the MVP frontrunners, even though right now he's in the conversation.
I don't know if you meant to say that Russell Wilson is his measuring stick or not, but it brought a smile to my face whether you did that purposely or not. Either way, Louis Riddick, as we look at Russell Wilson, 3 weeks ago, every conversation here started with, well, Russell Wilson is on his way to being the MVP of the league. And a strange thing has happened over the last month or so. What are you looking for tonight?
I'm just looking to see if they can have any semblance of balance, Greeny, on the offensive side of the ball, so it doesn't get so far out of whack like it has recently as far as their rush percentage. Right now they're throwing the ball well over 60% of the time because of the fact that, one, they know that every possession they have to make count. 2, the defense can't stop anybody. 3, the running game has kind of faltered due to injury and due to attrition. And now, so everything is on Russell Wilson, everything is on DK Metcalf, everything is on Tyler Lockett. So I'm just wondering if they can have any kind of balance at all so Russell doesn't feel as though every play is do or die. And then all of a sudden, you know what happens when that's the scenario. He starts forcing footballs. They start, subjecting themselves to turnovers, and then they have no shot. So that's really what I want to see, because if they get in a shootout with this team against Arizona, who has a much better defense, then they're going to lose the game. I just want to see if they can have any kind of balance at all and see if Carlos Hyde can kind of pick up the ball for Chris Carson.
How do you see it, Shefty? It's a critical game, obviously. There's a 3-way tie right now at the top of that division. The Rams will play actually on Monday night. Louis, you have that game, and we'll talk about it further. But this one obviously has a lot at stake. How do you see it, Shefty?
Well, amazing how it all fits together according to what Louis is saying, right? Again, Chris Carson's injury. Over the last 3 weeks, Russell Wilson has turned over the football more than anybody in football at this point in time. And so the lack of the running game has led to all the turnovers that has led to this team suddenly stumbling. But the fact of the matter is still that this division, the NFC West, is as strong as basically any division in all of football, and this division very well could produce at least 3 playoff teams, especially with the expanded playoff field of 7 teams in each conference, potentially even 8 if the league has to expand later. But this tonight, I think, is a preview of 2 teams headed to the playoffs.
Yeah, some numbers on Wilson that are remarkable. He's thrown 3 interceptions in the end zone this year. He had never thrown more than 1 in any season before. Okay, so that's tonight's game. We have an eye on that. Meanwhile, the big story in the NFL this week, of course, involves the injury to Drew Brees and his ribs. Our Ed Werder reporting that after seeking a second opinion on the injury, the original diagnosis, collapsed lung, 5 fractured ribs, that was confirmed. Doctors have not yet determined a time frame for his return, according to Ed Werder. Again, we'd heard that maybe the very optimistic side of this was 3 weeks. Others have said they think that more realistically is something more like 5 or 6 weeks. So, Shefty, is there any question that Jameis Winston becomes the starting quarterback for as long as Brees is out?
Yeah, there's a definite question about that, Greeny. And again, Sean Payton keeps telling us he hasn't made a decision. Why don't we believe him? They really like Taysom Hill. They really like Jameis Winston. There's support for both players. I would not just make the assumption that it's going to be Jameis Winston starting this weekend. Everybody seems to think that that's a foregone conclusion, and maybe ultimately it will be him. But Sean Payton himself has said, I have not made a decision yet. So again, if he hasn't made a decision yet, why can't we accept that as a fact? I actually have accepted that. And I don't think that it's a deadlock cinch that it's going to be Jameis Winston at this point in time. I think we need to be open-minded to the idea that based on what Sean Payton is saying, that it could be Taysom Hill. We know that they'd like to get him in there. So let's just see how this goes out and plays out over the course of the weekend. But there's an opportunity here for the Saints to see what they have in Taysom Hill, see what they have in Jameis Winston. Again, we've thought all along that this could very well be Drew Brees' last year, and now is a chance to win now and get a look into the future.
Listen, I'm asking for a friend here, but Jameis Winston was available on waivers in a fantasy league, and someone I know, namely me, might have just thrown him on his roster yesterday. So you're telling me starting him this weekend would feel like a very risky maneuver?
I don't know why you would start him yet, Greeny.
Okay, fair enough. You heard it right there from Shefty. I'm not going to lie to you. That just sent a little chill down my spine. Let me show you some numbers in the meantime here that I think you will find interesting. Hembo sent this out yesterday. Drew Brees was not Drew Brees, as we know him, until he teamed up with Sean Payton. People have labeled Jameis Winston this or that, unfixable. But if you look at his first 5 years and compare them to Drew Brees' first 5 years, the numbers are remarkably similar. Brees became the icon that we know when he got to New Orleans and teamed up with Sean Payton, which leads you to wonder, could Sean Payton work that kind of magic with a still young and obviously ridiculously talented player in Jameis Winston? And D. Wood joins the conversation, but Lewis, I'll start with you. How do you see that? Do you see Sean Payton being able to work some magic and turning Jameis Winston into the player that we all can see he could potentially be?
Yeah, I wouldn't count it out. Look, this offense in New Orleans is all about efficiency. It's all about making quick reads, getting the ball out of your hands fast, putting the ball where it needs to be put, especially in the short and intermediate game, and then letting your playmakers go from there. Now, what's interesting is, good old Hembo sent me some great statistics before the show started about the fact that, Jameis, what he struggled with a year ago was his accuracy and his decision-making on the short to intermediate throws, which is where New Orleans lives philosophically, in the short to intermediate passing game. Now, how it is taught to you and how you are able to go through your progressions and then how it is corrected, obviously is going to be different between what he experienced in Tampa and what he experiences in New Orleans. And Sean Payton is the master. I mean, that's a great graphic right there as far as the influence that he had on Drew Brees. So I believe this is a good chance for Jameis Winston, provided the fact that he starts, although Adam Schefter seems to be throwing a lot of doubt in everybody's mind right now. But I think this is a great opportunity for him to show that, look, with high-quality quarterback tutoring, he can take his game to the next level. We'll see. But you know what? Sean Payton has told me the same thing about Taysom Hill. He believes he's a starter in this league. He's told me every time I've talked to him. So, Greeny, I'd be sweating a little bit if you're counting on Jameis Winston. Just a little.
Okay, so he's going back on the bench. That we have decided for certain, so we can move on. Thank you for taking care of that for me here. Meanwhile, D. Wood, I'm coming to you on this. Last year, Brees got hurt. They went 5-0 without him with Teddy Bridgewater. As you look at their schedule, they have Atlanta this week, then the Broncos, then the Falcons again, then the Eagles. Do you see them being able to do this again? Can they go undefeated without Drew Brees, especially when you take a look at their schedule this year?
Absolutely, Greeny. I think when you talk about the New Orleans Saints, they're one of the most well-rounded teams in the National Football League. We got, when we watched them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you saw all areas of their team flourish. Defensively, they were flying around. They were all over that Bucs offense. Offensively, I think Sean Payton is going to put whoever is at quarterback, whether it's Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, they're going to just have to manage the football game. Nobody can expect them to be Drew Brees out there, but they have enough firepower to manage this game. And when you have guys like Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, those type of guys, those guys can make a ton of plays for you. So if those guys manage the game, like Lewis alluded to, this New Orleans Saints team, they could easily find themselves right at the top of the NFC.
Lewis, if you're preparing to play this team defensively this week, if you're the Falcons getting up against this team, and they're leaving that doubt in your mind as to who the quarterback is, and the two quarterbacks they can choose from could not be more different, right? The way Taysom Hill would play and the way Jameis Winston would play could not be more different. How are you preparing? Which one are you preparing for this week if you're Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm preparing for them to run the system, Greeny, that they've always run. That's what I'm preparing for. I'm preparing for the tendencies that Sean has shown, first and second down run pass, third down, how they like to attack in the red area. That's what, because I'm not going to go and just go through all those mental gymnastics to try and figure out, well, which guys it going to be. But I am going to make sure that I prepare for all the type of slash plays that Taysom Hill runs in those specific situations. Now, if he gets in there on an every down basis, I'll deal with him as it comes. But I'm really preparing for the system because the system is what works down there.
ahead,
Lewis,
Shefty.
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because earlier this week, I had Raheem Morris on my podcast, and I said, how do you prepare for a Drew Brees-less New Orleans Saints team? Do you prepare for Jameis Winston? Do you prepare for Taysom Hill? And Raheem Morris said, I don't prepare for either one. I prepare for a Sean Payton-led offense. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how the Falcons have gone about it this week because they don't know what they're going to get. They'll be ready for Winston. They'll be ready for Taysom Hill. But most important, they'll be ready for what Sean Payton has done through the years.
Okay, I have time to run the hurry up here, guys. Can I do it? Can I get Shefty through some of these other notes here? If we have time to do it, let me try and get that in. Cindy, let me know if we can. Let us run